This is Mahadev, the Thunder Wizard. Welcome back to the channel. So people have asked me recently, have you looked into any of the astrological things going on? And the truth is I hadn't. But I did go online and listen to a couple of astrologers whom I respect. And I've left the links for you in both the live stream as well as in the video description. And this goes along with what people have been saying for decades. Now, people have been talking about September 23rd being the end of the world kind of thing because it's repeated in movies so often, but it hasn't been a specific year because that, you know, Christians, born-again Christians have been saying September 23rd, you know, and it hasn't been the case. So when I heard about this, I was like, oh, that's interesting. It certainly lines up with some of the feelings that I have about, you know, the world is going to shift, and that would certainly line up with my feelings. Although, let me be clear, I have not received any direct communication about any date whatsoever. So I don't know when the shift is going to come. I don't know if the Earth split and frequency split happens. I don't know. I don't know if you know, that's going to happen on the 23rd. I do find it very interesting, however, now that I have this new understanding. By the way, you know, I hope you've gone on to Rumble, my Rumble channel, and watch the videos I have. By the way, I mean, just go on Rumble and just get as much info as you can, you know, that's outside of the mainstream. Understanding what is really going on in Maui is extremely important. And, you know, so you need to educate yourself on that. This isn't the channel for that. But, you know, I mean, what I'm trying to say is that, you know, people have been talking about that Hollywood in movies, which is true for decades, has been giving this date of September 23rd. In fact, there's at least one movie, I think it was with, what's his name, the comedian. Anyway, there's a movie, you know, one guy gets obsessed with that date. The whole movie is about that. And so the reason why I find that important now is because I do believe that there has been a core group of extremely rich people who have been controlling all of the most important things, most importantly, the banks. We've talked about that. Just as an example, the United States government literally has no money of its own. The money that the United States uses comes, well, as the legal pathways comes from the United States Federal Reserve Bank, which is a privately owned bank that makes money off of your taxes, makes money off of the loans, trillions of dollars of loans that it gives to the United States. You know, I'm no fan now. I am no fan of the Democrats. I am no fan of the Clintons, of Obama. At the time, I didn't know any better, and I thought they were as good as anybody else. But apparently the one thing that Clinton did is he balanced the budget, which meant there was a surplus. There's a reason why the United States is constantly in debt. It's because there are private bankers who make money off of the interest from the loans. So when they loan the United States money to bail out themselves, bail out the bankers, bail out Wall Street, bail out whomever, when the United States gives grant money to drug companies to go and research different types of drugs, which then they turn around and sell to you for a profit, guess who's the real person who makes the money? It is the Federal Reserve Bank, which is not owned by the United States. And I don't know who owns the Federal Reserve Bank. I'm sure somebody does. But it would not surprise me in the slightest if there were non-Americans who owned that bank. In other words, there's no country that isn't bought off by the banks, not one. And so that includes media, that includes the military, that includes governments around the world, that includes three-lettered organizations that are funded by your tax dollars, as well as contributions from people like Bill Gates. Bill Gates, as I understand it, is the single largest contributor to the World Health Organization. If I understand that correctly, I could be wrong, but that it's right there, and he's made billions, if not millions, of dollars off of vaccine sales. These are facts. So right there, we're dealing with a potential conflict of interest. It's a setup for a conflict of interest. And this is the world that we live in. And as you know, I was in Hollywood. I was not a successful actor, but I was there for a little while, and I was there long enough and went on to enough auditions, and I did things like audition for some big movies, like what was that movie? Reservoir Dogs. That could have been the start of my career. I was the reader for The Matrix, which meant that I played the part of Neo while they videotaped other actors who were auditioning for other parts. I was there for all that. I've done that whole scene, and I learned very quickly that, as was told to me by the first agent I ever met, I was still in college, and I was the big up-and-coming actor, and everybody was telling me this guy's going to make it in Hollywood, and I was the king of the drama department, blah, blah, blah. And one of the teachers there was married to Mally Finn. Now, if you don't know who Mally Finn is, her daughter is the one that does all the casting for all the Marvel movies. She was huge. And she saw me act, and she sent me to the biggest agents in Hollywood. That includes, at the time, if you know who, anyway, I get like this and I can't remember names, but huge actor, international actor. And I went to this extremely exclusive agency because she recommended me. And I walked in the door, and this woman sitting on the other side of the table, she looks at me and she says, "How do you know Mally Finn?" And I told her. She goes, "Oh." And back then you had to give a resume and a headshot. So I did that. And I'm 20 something years old, and I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and, excited. And she looks at it, she puts it down. And now on there, I've got a bunch of awards. I won this award, I won this acting award, I won this, all of these, for a college actor, very impressive. She puts it down, she says, "We don't care how much talent or training you have." Crickets. Just silence. Now I'm waiting for the other part of it. There wasn't another part of it. She started laughing uproariously because I'm sitting there, innocently waiting for the next part of the sentence. Here's what we do care about. She laughed until she couldn't hold it back anymore. And then she said, it's who you know. And, you don't know anybody. So you're nobody to me. I mean, she didn't say those words, but that was the feeling. And it was the truest thing I've ever been told. And I learned very quickly that the people who do make it in Hollywood are the people who sleep around. We now see that with, this has all come out with the Me Too movement. People who made it in Hollywood, not all of them, some of them actually made it and were lucky. But a lot of them made it because they slept around, including men. And a lot of them made it because they were marketable. And what I found out is that movies, like television, had nothing to do with acting. It had everything to do with advertisements. And television shows were about advertising. And so you could never have anybody that, if you notice the people who become stars on television, they're attractive in a very non-intimidating way. They're like mannequins. They're attractive to look at, but they're not too attractive. And they don't really have any real features one way or another. They're very neutral. And I watched that and I realized that that's why I don't make it. I'm too intense. I'm too intense. I'm not a good person that's gonna, help people sell gum. I say that because I went to an acting workshop once, and and they said, now we got to do some commercial acting, and they gave me a gum, and people said, you look like a serial killer, because I couldn't make the gum look cute. I just didn't have the ability. So the point I'm trying to make is that Hollywood has been talking about the 23rd of September for decades. They know something about this upcoming date. Sorry, I went on a long diatribe about myself. My apologies. But they know something about the 23rd. Otherwise, they wouldn't keep putting it into movies. And as it turns out, the people who run the movie business are the same people who run the advertising business, the same people who run the governments, the same people who run the banks, the same people who run the military, the same people who run the petroleum. It's all the same group of people. I think 100 families. BlackRock is one of, BlackRock, there's a lot of those families in BlackRock. So when I saw that there was an astrological event assigned to the 23rd of September, I now am starting to think something's up with this. Because here's what I've learned. Back in the 2 years ago or so, when I was still part of the political narrative, if you remember, I spent a lot of time bad-mouthing anybody who I felt was involved in conspiracy theories. And as I said, I was wrong for the right reasons, because many of them were people just had feelings, and they were looking for feelings. And of course, they'd conflate, and if they had emotional and psychological issues, they would conflate it with flat Earth, and they would, and David Icke stuff, and they would conflate. And so, being the person that I was, a very practical, prove it to me science kind of person, when somebody's off by 25%, I'm like, then it's all not, we have to throw the whole thing out. And then the pandemic came along, and I saw, it became very clear, the whole controversy around ivermectin, it became very clear to me that something was up. And it became very clear to me that it was obviously far deeper and more widespread than I could have imagined. And even then, that is nothing compared to what I see now. Can't talk about it here on YouTube, but, I'm still not a flat earther. But other than that, you can pretty much check me off the list on all of them, because they're turning out to be true. The theories are turning out to be true. So I've got my ears picked up about this. So what I'm going to do, because this is out of my expertise. I mean, I'm an okay astrologer, and some things I'm really good at it, but in terms of, all the permutations of astrology, I mean, it's really over my head. It's really not. I haven't spent my life mastering astrology. So I defer to those who are. And I can tell when somebody knows what they're talking about. So I'm going to play for you. This is a video on YouTube, and I've given the link in both the chat and in the description. And I'm just going to play for you the part that I think is most important. So we're going to listen to this together. And then I'm going to tell you my experience of what is happening right now. I can't speak for you, but for me, the conflict inside of me is raging. Just the energetic conflict is raging. And I am seeing people flipping out. I'm experiencing people who up until now have been very even-keeled, and they are completely going off their rockers. I'm finding people who have things that they have pushed down into their unconscious just to survive. Now that stuff is boiling up, and you're seeing the true colors of what is going on underneath with people. And it is absolutely mind-boggling. And we're seeing this you know, the Maui fires. You know, I mean, it's not like there's a fringe of people who have these alternate theories. Everywhere across YouTube, I mean, the powers that be cannot put out, forgive the pun, put out all the fires of the people who are, you know, the traffic being blocked by the cops, the mayor and the governor all being out of town, the new police chief, the fact that FEMA is in $1,000 a night hotels where, you know, President Biden gave $700 to the surviving households. There are bodies washing up on other islands. I mean, and you know, all the other stuff that's, I mean, it is stinking to high heaven. And everybody's seeing it, and everybody's starting to wake up. And this is just the beginning. And we talk on Rumble about what's really going on with all of the other weather events, the unbelievable, unprecedented weather events happening specifically in the United States and in China, the two most powerful countries in the world, the two remaining superpowers in the world. They, coincidentally, for reasons I can't explain logically, are having unprecedented weather events. You're being told it's because of global warming, and we have just begun. But people are waking up everywhere. So let's get into it. Let's listen to what this astrologer has to say, and then I'll talk some more.
Now let me come to you with the most crucial, the most important thing that I wanted to tell you about this month. I've never seen something like this happening before, so I myself don't know what to really expect, because when I did the research and I went back and looked at times in the past when these three things have come together, which I'm going to tell you, it's never happened before. I went back all the way till the year 1776 to see if this has ever happened before. Three things happening at the same time, okay? The first thing, United States chart, moon sits at 7 degrees Aquarius. Saturn will be exactly on that moon between the dates of 23rd and 24th of September. Now, we have talked about this at length in past. This is a Sade Sati. Whenever Saturn is over the moon, it's going on, transiting on the moon. In a natal chart, it's a 7.5 year period, right? But when it's exactly on that degree mark, when there are other transits happening that can also support it, it really does signify an event, okay? So Saturn will be at 7 degrees of Aquarius, exactly on the United States moon. Is that a rare thing? No, that happens once every 30 years. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the research that I did here. So that happens once every 30 years. So, you know, it happened in 1993, then 1963, and each time it happens, what it does is Saturn rules the second house in United States chart. So it brings about, or moon rules the 8th house too, right? Moon rules the 8th house in United States chart. So it's usually something to do with finances, the dollar, the currency, the banking, the economy, those kind of areas. It's to do with communications, electrical disturbances. There can be communication breakdown sometimes, right? Because it's sitting in the 3rd house of United States chart. So that happens every 30 years. That's the first thing, Saturn going over the moon. What makes this unique is that at the exact same time, on the same day, Mars in Virgo is going to be exactly on United States Saturn. United States has Saturn in Virgo in the 10th house. Mars will be exactly on it. Now, this is unique. These two things happening at the same time, I've not seen that happen before. And I'm going to tell you one more, a third thing that you can add to the mix, okay? But for now, Saturn on moon in the 3rd house of United States chart. Mars on Saturn in the 10th house of United States chart. What is Mars aspecting Saturn in the 10th house? Leaders, government, politics. It has to do with changes in the way we interact with other countries, changes in the way we do our business. 10th house is career. So in a country chart, it's the way we interact with the other countries in terms of trade and business, money, finances. So those are the areas that are getting affected. And don't forget, in the United States chart, that Saturn that's sitting in the 10th house rules the second house of finances and money. So that's another thing. Communications are affected because Saturn rules the third house of communications. And radio communications, wireless, satellites, there can be some event that affects all of these areas. Now, like I said, Mars going on the Saturn happens once every 2 years. But what makes us unique is that at the same time, on the same day, you have these two transits happening. You could still find this. If you go back and research, maybe there is a time in the last 250 years when this happened. But there's another thing that's happening. There's a third aspect that's also happening. And when you bring that into the mix, those three together have never happened before. That's why I think this is a very triggering point for United States. On the same time frame, this September 23rd and 24th, Sun is going to be in Virgo. And it's going to sixth aspect. Remember, the sixth aspect is conflicts, difficulties, issues, troubles. Sixth aspect on that Saturn. And it's going to sixth aspect the Moon in United States chart. Now, when you think of these three things happening at the same time, never happened before. I went back and looked. So this is a very crucial time, September 23rd and 24th. I think there's going to be a big event. It could be even if it's, it's not very evident at the time, it could be a decision that's made. I know the UN meeting, the summit is happening at that same time, right, in New York. Could be a decision that's made about the future of United States. But the area that this particular transit will affect, the three transits coming together, September 23rd and 24th, the areas it will affect is economy, money, finances, dollar, the currency, the way we interact with other countries, our trade relations, because that's the 10th house, our communications, right? The wireless and radio and all the other electromagnetic communication techniques that we use. So there can be those kind of issues. There can be weather, unexplained weather phenomena, because, Uranus is sitting in Aries, like we talked about it earlier. But these are the two dates I want you to watch in September 23rd and 24th, okay? In terms of a world event or a decision or a summit. Like we said, the UN summit is happening at that time, but it may not be that. It may be something else. But those two dates, it doesn't look that good. Those three transits that are happening, all three transits involve malefics: Mars, Saturn, Sun. Sun and Saturn don't get along. They're not friends. But I want to tell you one more thing about the Sadhisati. Sadhisati brings something out into the open, right? And whenever a Sadhisati happens, things become, it's like we get into the next phase of our life, right? We are going to a better world. So this is going to bring about a healing, especially in the sign of Virgo. There's going to be a health crisis, then there's going to be a healing, and it's going to make things much better. We'll do things much better after that. So this is an awakening. It's a spiritual awakening that's coming up.
Okay. You heard it. There is spiritual awakening coming up. But before that happens, looks like everything's going to come apart. The United States, who knows? I mean, she doesn't seem to really know exactly what. General things about economy, leadership, She's not the only person I've heard who said that there's going to be, sometime between now and then, that there's going to be another potential pandemic scare. But here's what I'm seeing. If we assume, for argument's sake, I can't prove it, so I'm not giving any specific theories about anything on this channel. But even if we were to take, for argument's sake, that there is some kind of, I have to pick my words carefully here. There is some kind of agreement among different parties to have a significant impact on the world. If that turns out to be true, it seems as though they didn't expect for all of the people to be reacting the way that they are. It seems, if it's true, it seems as though the powers that be really expected everybody to buy everything at face value, hook, line, and sinker, and be completely motivated by fear, and that isn't working. It worked for a little while a couple of years ago, and then it stopped working. And there have been attempts to completely control all media. That isn't working. Nobody really watches MSNBC anymore. Nobody is really believing what is happening, especially in Maui, is only some kind of, global. Watch what's going to happen in Maui. Because when they go to clean that up and start building on native land, you are going to see a backlash that nobody's ever experienced before. Not just from Hawaii, but from around the world, and people are going to stand up. People in the United States are going to stand up. They're not going to put up with it anymore. They're not fooled. They weren't fooled the first time, and they're not getting fooled now. It is being revealed. Everything is being revealed. And so I don't know exactly what this event is going to be. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if this is when the solar flash event happened. Again, for those of you who are new to my channel, in June of 2022, I began reaching out to communicate with higher dimensional extraterrestrial beings, and I was successful in that. And that started a long interaction up until just recently. I mean, this past week, things have calmed down, and I haven't had any notable interactions. And I don't know why that is. My guess is either I need a break from it, and or they're very busy. So I don't know why. But up until just a week ago, literally on a daily basis, I was getting daily messages, daily downloads, people showing up. The last time that an ET showed up and there was a craft outside my house was just about 2 or 3 weeks before the Maui fires. And, I don't get all googly when ET's crafts show up. I don't know why. It's like seeing somebody in the car that they drive. It's like, that's just not my thing. I mean, I got nothing against it. But now I'm realizing they showed up and they said, if you go outside, you'll see us. And I went outside, and sure enough, their craft signaled to me, and I acknowledged it, and then they disappeared. They did some interesting things. I wish I had figured out what the star was, but they made these really cool colors come off of one of the stars. And what I found about ETs is that what they will do is, when you're in a populated area, like I'm in a small town, but there's plenty of people around, so they're not going to show up in a big way because they don't want to frighten anybody else. But if they want you to know that they're there, they'll do something anomalous that you'll catch. You know, there will be a falling star moving in a way that falling stars can't possibly move, you know, or there'll be a plane that'll just magically disappear out of nowhere. You know, that kind of stuff. And the average person, if they're just looking around, they won't notice it. But if you're paying attention and they're talking to you, you'll know it's them. And it was one of those where they wanted to let me know. And I kind of thought about it because I know that they know I don't really care. You know, they said, if you go outside, you'll see us. And I'm like, really? I got to get out of bed? And, but I think the reason they did that was because that was the last download I got. And that download was, if I can remember the specific message, the download was, it's all going to start coming apart. There's going to be a lot of big things coming, a lot of intense things coming. Don't get scared. And then they told me some things about myself, what's going to happen with me after the fact. You know, they wanted me to know. We want you to know what's coming, and we don't want you to be afraid. Just keep doing what you do. Just keep doing your thing. And they even said, you know, we're gonna give you some time to yourself. Just be human for a while. So when the Maui fires hit, I knew what was going on. The Maui fires hit, and on 2 days before the Maui fires hit, as it turns out, China. The weather events in China have been unprecedented. Strange happenings, water spouts out of the ground, you know, animals doing all kinds of crazy things, earthquakes, floods, storms, tornadoes, unprecedented in, you know, China's history. And in the United States, since the spring, there's been a tornado season that has never stopped. There's been floods, there's been fires, there's been now hurricanes. And 2 days after Maui, California got hit with an unprecedented, they call it a tropical storm, but a tropical storm means you're just below a hurricane. So when that tropical storm hit San Diego, you might as well call it a hurricane, because that's what it was. And the amount of water that was dropped in the center of the state, you know, the coastal didn't get it as bad. My friends in LA didn't get it as bad. But the stuff that was going on in the mountains and stuff that was going on, you know, in the deserts is unprecedented. And the very day that that storm hit, there was a 5-point-something earthquake in just north of Los Angeles. If I were to write a movie about it, a sci-fi thriller, the movie, which isn't the truth, this is just my imagination here, so don't make any conclusions about what I'm saying. If I were to write a movie about this, I would say that sounds like somebody's trying to destroy Southern California. That would be a great way to do it. I don't think it worked, but you know, it's just too convenient and coincidental. And then on top of that, we have the fires in Canada. And, you know, I talk about on Rumble what that might be all about. And so to hear that this is just the beginning, from an astrological perspective, we're heading towards this 23rd event, the 23rd and the 24th. And if what this woman is saying is true, which of course it's a Vedic astrology prediction, so you know we can't make any conclusions based on this. This is not scientific evidence. This is astrology, for God's sake. But if what this woman is saying, if it were true, that there's going to be this major shift within the United States politically, you know, that the dollar might crash. You know, this is huge. But again, what's most wonderful about it, and you can see this in both of the links that I've provided for you, the Vedic astrology links, both in the description and in the chat. The great thing is that after that will come a complete spiritual revolution and awakening. So, you know, there's something coming. And somebody sent me a comment on the channel about the divine kingship or something returning to Earth. I don't know what that's about. But same time frame between, it's going to start now. As it turns out, the sun is in Leo and is right now, I believe, is conjunct the star Sirius. So I don't know what significance that has, but it wouldn't surprise me if that did have some kind of dawning of a new leadership, whatever that means. But definitely this old way of governing, which is done by the banks. Let's be clear. The banks run the world. Your life is run by money. Your life is run by debt. It doesn't matter if you own your home. The bank owns the mortgage. You don't own your home. It doesn't matter if you own your car. None of that matters. And when the economy goes to centrally digitized currency, the government will determine what you do, where you go. If you don't do what they say, they will take your money away. They will block you from accessing it. They were going to do that. During the pandemic, they did that same thing. You can't get on a plane without, you can't do anything without you can't go outside your house. In Australia, there were people who weren't allowed to take their kids out into the park hundreds of feet from other people because they hadn't followed the rules. And people were getting arrested because they were under curfew and they dared to bring their trash out to the street, getting a ticket, getting arrested. They tried it already. So if you don't think the one thing that I've learned is that they're not going to give up. Just because they run into some roadblocks, they're not going to give up. And what you're seeing here is you're seeing a final dash to the finish line. You're seeing that last kick the sprinter takes, and no holds barred, no more trying to play around and jockey for position. Now it's all out sprint to the finish line. They know something's coming. I've never seen anything like this in my entire life. No amount of global warming can explain what has been going on. It's just not, in my uneducated, unscientific opinion, it's just not possible. Maybe I'm wrong. But now we've got, one of the most beautiful spiritual sciences that has helped me, saying, yep, 23rd and the 24th, it's all coming down. So my suggestion to everybody is to focus on where this is going. It is a shift. Focus on the understanding. I got a picture here of the two worlds coming apart. Focus on even if it's not true, the mentality behind it can only benefit you, which is that there's going to be a higher and a lower frequency of Earth. In fact, somebody said this to me just yesterday. And I didn't realize the significance until I put this video up. Somebody literally said that they couldn't be around my frequency. They used those words. They meant something else. But the fact that they chose that word was, I'm realizing, if you are upshifting, you're going to make people who are still trying to stay in that lower frequency, you're going to make them extremely uncomfortable. And they're going to start accusing you of things that aren't true. If you're around people who aren't shifting up, I mean, you have your own experience. Maybe you're experiencing it, maybe not. I'm experiencing it. The people who are shifting up, their vibe is becoming more loving and more friendly. The people who are staying stuck are becoming really aggressive and abusive. And they will accuse you of being and doing and saying things that you aren't doing and you aren't saying and you aren't thinking. And even if they don't do that, they will just come out and say, I don't like your frequency, because it's a threat. Let me be clear about this. The shift up, this isn't Jesus coming and saving Christians in the rapture. This is us choosing to shift. And we no longer can get away with, I'm just a human, I'm imperfect, I can't do it. We can't get away with that anymore. We have to choose. And the choice that you make is first to love yourself unconditionally. Please take a look at all of the self-defeating talk that you have in you. The voice in you that says you're not lovable, nobody likes you, you're not good enough, you'll never be able to accomplish anything. Like my mom said to me when I was 40-something years old and I, was moving out of the house again, and she said, you'll never be able to make it without me. Those voices in your head that tell you you can't do it, you've got to start telling yourself the opposite. I can do it. I can do anything. I am divine. I am God. I can create anything I want in my life. That doesn't mean it's going to feel good. It means it's going to be frightening. You are going to go through feelings of cognitive dissonance. Can you imagine the cognitive dissonance? And there was a video that I was watching of a family in Maui, and they're trying to get out of Lahaina. They're trying to drive out, and no matter where they go, there's either a fire or something, and one of the children was crying. It's like obvious we're not going to get out of here. And the older children and the mother were like, don't worry, everything's going to be fine. Look, there's a fire truck. They're not going to let anything happen. And what she didn't know at the time is that the fire department had been denied the water. The one day that ever happened, they were denied water to put out the fire. And they're trusting the fire department, and the poor fire department's doing everything they can, but they didn't have any water. They couldn't put out the fire. They didn't have any water to do it with. They're driving around, and then they can't get out, and they start to get out from underneath the smoke, and they're literally seconds away from getting away from the fire, and there's a cop blocking them from leaving. And instead of slamming on the brakes and getting out of the car and getting in the cop's face and saying, what the hell is your problem? All of these people back here need to get out. We're going to die. Instead, they trusted. And they said, oh, I guess, and they turned around back into the fire. And luckily for them, they got out of their cars and got in the ocean, and they survived. But there are cars, if you see the footage, that they're trying to keep you from seeing. Because if it weren't for, as I understand it, if it weren't for Elon Musk bringing in internet, there would be no internet to Lahaina. There's no, FEMA has a blackout. They're not allowed to post anything on social media. There's the police and now the military are not allowing any journalists in. But is hard to say. The children's parents were out at work, and the children were sent home away from their parents. And there are cars. In one car, there's the bones of a child covering up the dog, trying to keep the dog from getting burned to death. And people are going to lose their minds. If you're going to shift up, you've got to be willing to face that kind of thing within yourself. Some people are more evolved and they're going to move on, and the people who have the most trauma are going to have the most difficulty. It's going to be very challenging. It's challenging for me. So I know that it's going to be challenging for others, that they're going to have to, the cognitive dissonance. Can you imagine the cognitive dissonance of those people who trusted the authorities to take care of them, and they ended up having to run into the ocean to save their lives. The cognitive dissonance that must be going on in people's minds. Some people know exactly what's going on, and other people are trying to figure it out. But you guys are here to protect me. I pay taxes. I vote. I don't understand. Why would you do this? This doesn't make any sense. And it's gonna be very difficult. And there's nothing more painful in my experience than cognitive dissonance. The people that you love, that you trust, are the ones that are abusing you. It's very hard to digest. And to then face within yourself the feeling, this is going to be, a lot of people are going to experience this. I experienced it. I know other people experienced it when I first interacted with ETs. The first feeling I had was that I was betraying the human race. And the cognitive dissonance that hit me. What? So you're going to feel bad. You're going to feel guilty as you start to shift up. But still choose to shift up. Please do the interdimensional meditations. And please, in your meditations, go and imagine your perfect world, whatever that is. I'm imagining a world with no government, no money, no cops, no boundaries, no banks. I'm going to imagine a world where people take care of each other because they love each other, where there's a higher vibrational awareness. And the 2 times that my ET friends shifted me up to the 5D awareness, whether I was completely there or just getting a taste of it, I don't know. But I can tell you that if the whole world is in that state, there will be no need for this kind of world. There will be no need for monies, banks, religion. There will be no need for any of it. People will feel God within them. They won't have to talk about it or pray about it. People will feel their connection to all life, including grains of sand, to human beings, to animals, to clouds, to extraterrestrials, to the planets. One thing I got to say, since we're talking about astrology, and I'll end with this. There's the sun, as you know, is going through a solar maximum, and there's huge amounts of solar activity. Now, a small portion of that is hitting Earth. And I was thinking about that because I'm wanting all of that stuff to come to Earth. I want all of that solar radiation to shift me up. Until I realized something that I came to understand a while ago, which is that the planets in our solar system are our chakras. They are literally the projection of, for instance, the projection of your third eye. Yes, I'm talking to you. Your third eye is projecting Jupiter out into space. If you didn't have a third eye, there would be no planet Jupiter. So the sun is sending this energy in all directions. And a small portion is hitting Earth, because Earth is this tiny little planet in comparison to this big sun and this huge solar system. So where's the rest of all of that solar radiation hitting? All of the other planets. And the planets are your chakras. So the chakra system of the human race is getting an upgrade even when we're not getting a direct hit by the sun. And there's a lot of stuff coming, energetically, which we're seeing. So I just want to remind you of that. Keep doing your meditations, keep doing your practices. With everything I have inside of me, I want you to know how amazing you are. How beautiful you are. And it breaks my heart when I see people who can't accept the beauty within themselves. It breaks my heart. And those are the ones that fight back the hardest. The ones that are the most cruel to you are the ones who can't accept their own divinity within themselves. And the more you tell them how beautiful that you are, the more they hate you. I personally just experienced this with somebody that I cared about. Somebody came at me and attacked me in the most cruel way I could have imagined. And it was somebody whom I thought the world of. And I can only attribute it that this person is struggling with this shift. And as she said, verbatim, I don't like your frequency. So your frequency might be harmful for those that want to hold, that don't want to, that aren't willing. I was going to say aren't able, but it's just not true. People who aren't willing to choose to shift up, and that's what has to happen here. So between now and the 23rd, I strongly recommend everybody do everything within their power. And if you can't, if you say to yourself, I can't choose to do this, that is a valid thing. The inability to choose to move up is valid. But you can do something about it. It means you have to get a source of power that will give you the ability to shift up. And that's what this channel is about. Everything that I provide for you, I spend all of my spare time thinking about how I can give you something so that you can have an edge, you can shift up. All of the free meditations, all of the free energy work, everything on the free channel is yours. You know, the Hual breath, the Huar breath, Huul breath, go look it up. Huar breath, go look it up. And then, of course, you know, all the stuff I have over here, the 90-day challenge is the most powerful practices I've put together. I can't find anything more powerful, and I make it available to you. You can unsubscribe if you don't like it, but you got nothing to lose. I will be very surprised if 2024, 2025, if things are the same. I will be absolutely surprised, and I will be the first to come and tell you I was wrong. But so far, just about everything that my ET friends have told me has come true, except for some things they told me about, you know, at one point it sounded like they said I was going to find a relationship, but, you know, other people have free will, so it's possible that either I didn't respond to somebody or somebody didn't respond to me. But in terms of world events, in terms of changes in the world, everything they've told me has happened. So I'll leave it at that. I'm not taking any questions unless I recognize your name and you happen to be subscribed. I did see that India landed a spacecraft on the south pole of the moon. I found that very interesting. I don't know what that means, but that is interesting. Angela, I don't know if you're a subscriber. I'm going to assume you are. Honest Feeling, I received the books. Oh, good for you. She says, I'm so excited. So there are 3 books that I recommend that you get of mine. If you go to, as you see, get my books, michaelwilliamdenny.com. The 3 most important books are in this order. The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life, Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth, and Interdimensional Revolution. Those 3 books are the most important, and I recommend that you read them. I recommend that you memorize the Shamanic Secret Commandment and you put it into practice. If you can master what's in that book, you're guaranteed to shift up, because that is going to be how people are going to live. In the 5th dimension, people are going to intuitively live what I teach in that book. So learn that now, because that's going to be, you know, everybody's way of living, whether they put it in the same words that I did or not. What else? Again, I'm not going to take a look at anybody who's not subscribed. Nothing personal. It's just, you know, people who tend to not be subscribed to, not the channel, but the 90-day, Warrior 90-day, tend to ask questions that are already, I've answered many times, and that you can answer if you watch the videos and read the material. What else? Nothing else. Okay. So that's it for me, guys. I wish you all the best. I love you, and as you know, I'm here for you. And if you're in trouble, Like if you're emotionally in a troubled space, you can think of me. And you can ask yourself, what would Mahadeva do? Now, let's be clear. You're accessing your higher self when you do that. I'm just a symbol. I don't actually think that even though people come back to me and they have dreams or say I came to them in their meditations, which I don't know, my higher self could do whatever the heck he wants. I don't know, but I'm just as human as the rest of you. But there's power in just knowing that somebody has your back, that somebody's vibrating on the same level. So you can think of me, and you can ask, what would Mahadeva do? And the most difficult thing is to do the opposite of what your impulses are telling you. Your reflexes and your impulses oftentimes are telling you to do the opposite of what you need to do. Just like those people, their reflexes were telling them to trust the cops, and they should have done the opposite. They should have listened to what they saw, which was flames barreling down on them. They should have ran that fucking cop over. Not really, but I mean, there's some people that escaped, and what they did, they had 4x. One person had 4x, and the cops were blocking the road, and these guys just went through fields and went around them and back on the road. Cops tried to chase them, I think. But you do whatever the hell you have to do, and you do the opposite of what your programming wants to tell you to do. Okay, guys, I love you. That's it. I will see you all next time. Please take good care of yourselves.